The most dangerous people are not the ones who attack you. They're the ones who smile while they do it. This isn't paranoia. This isn't some conspiracy. It's the raw truth that Carl Jung spent his life trying to expose. That evil doesn't always wear a villain's face. Sometimes it shows up as a friend, a lover, a helper. There are people in your life right now who cannot be trusted, not because they scream, betray, or openly harm you, but because their danger is hidden behind charm, good intentions, and quiet manipulation. Jung didn't just study the mind. He studied what people hide. He warned us that the most destructive forces in our lives aren't always external. They're the people who blend in. They comfort you while they control you. They pretend to care while they slowly unravel your peace, your confidence, your reality. They don't raise their voice. They don't throw punches. They wear masks. And if you're not paying attention, you'll hand your trust and your soul to someone who's wearing a disguise. This is what Jung called the shadow, the hidden self, the repressed self, the part of a person they don't want you or even themselves to see. But it always leaks out through subtle words, actions, and emotional games, because people don't show you who they are. They show you what works, and if you don't learn to see the mask, you'll become a victim of it. This video isn't about fear. It's about awareness. It's about waking up to the signs you've been ignoring. It's about reclaiming your clarity, your power, and your peace. Because Jung identified 6 psychological masks, 6 roles people play that seem harmless. But if you let them in too deep, they will dismantle your life piece by piece. So before we begin, ask yourself, who around me feels just a little too perfect, a little too helpful, a little too off? Let's begin. 1. The chronic victim. This is the person who always seems to be suffering, misunderstood, mistreated, and wronged by life itself. At first, you feel sympathy. You offer compassion. You listen patiently, thinking they just need support or safe space to heal. But as time passes, a pattern becomes clear. Nothing ever changes. Every relationship, every job, every opportunity ends in betrayal, and somehow it's never their fault. Carl Jung warned about this dynamic. He understood that people who remain perpetually in victim mode are often unconsciously manipulating the world around them. Their pain becomes a tool, not just for survival, but for control. When someone is always the victim, they never have to take accountability, never need to evolve, and never need to confront their own darkness. Instead, they keep you emotionally entangled. Helping them starts to feel like an obligation. You find yourself walking on eggshells, trying not to trigger more suffering. This isn't healing. It's power dressed up as helplessness. Jung believed that when someone fuses with their shadow instead of facing it, they begin to use their pain as a mask, one that protects their ego while pulling others into emotional servitude. They rewrite stories to suit their narrative. They twist reality subtly, casting themselves as the perpetual underdog and casting you as either the rescuer or the villain. And if you're not careful, you'll start to feel guilty for simply being okay. You'll feel wrong for not being broken too. The real danger isn't that they're hurting, it's that their pain has become their identity, and your empathy is the leash they quietly tighten around your spirit. 2. The charming mirror. This individual doesn't come with chaos or complaint. In fact, they seem perfect, attentive, warm, and interested in everything you care about. They're quick to agree, quick to validate, and always reflect back what you want to hear. At first, it feels magical. You think you found someone who truly gets you, but slowly, something feels off. You realize you've shared everything, and they've shared nothing. You know your own dreams, but you can't name theirs. Jung called this the danger of the persona trap. When someone becomes overly identified with their mask, the version of themselves they show to the world, their true self, becomes hidden, even from themselves. The charming mirror is not being fake exactly. They're being adaptive, but not for connection, for control. They shapeshift to win favor. Their kindness is calculated. Their warmth is a tactic. They're not bonding with you. They're bonding with your ideal version of them. This kind of person is not loyal to you. They are loyal to your admiration. The second you question them, disagree, or stop feeding their image, the mask slips. They become cold, distant, or even cruel. And that's when you realize you never knew who they were. They only ever reflected the version of yourself you liked best. And once you stop seeing them as extraordinary, they vanish, because their true self was never in the room to begin with. 3. The passive-aggressive enabler. This type is especially difficult to recognize because they rarely oppose you directly. Instead, they operate through soft-spoken doubt and disguised concern, often positioning themselves as your biggest supporter. They don't criticize, they caution, they don't insult, they warn. When you speak about your goals, they respond with gentle hesitation. Wow, that's ambitious. I just don't want you to get your hopes up. Or, you're really brave to try that. I couldn't handle that kind of failure. At first, it seems like wisdom, like they're trying to protect you from disappointment. But over time, their words create invisible limits around your potential. Jung referred to this as the shadow of the helper, someone who appears nurturing but is deeply driven by unconscious insecurity. These individuals offer guidance not to see you grow, but to ensure you stay small. Your dreams threaten their relevance. Your confidence disrupts the dynamic where they play the role of advisor, mentor, or protector. So they quietly chip away at your belief in yourself, not with malice, but with masked self-interest. They may believe they're helping you, but beneath that, they're clinging to control. Eventually, you'll notice that you're second-guessing your goals more around them. You feel the need to downplay your excitement or preemptively defend your choices. You'll shrink your vision, not because you lack courage, but because someone close to you keeps planting seeds of fear. This is not love. It's control cloaked in concern. And when you fail, they'll be the first to say, I just didn't want to see you get hurt, satisfied that your collapse confirmed their quiet warnings. The truth is, they never wanted you to fall. They just couldn't bear to see you fly without them. 4. The secret competitor. Unlike the obvious rival, this person pretends to be your ally. They celebrate your achievements, but never too much. They compliment you, but always with a subtle redirect. When you succeed, they're quick to bring up their own recent win or remind you of a time they did something similar. It may seem like coincidence, like a shared journey, but underneath their friendliness lies an unspoken game of one-upmanship. They're not trying to support you. They're trying to keep up with you, or worse, stay ahead. Jung believed that this behavior comes from a place of deep inferiority. These individuals don't outwardly express jealousy or hate. They often admire you, but that admiration turns toxic when it reflects back their own insecurity. Your success, instead of inspiring them, quietly provokes them. So they compete not through direct sabotage, but through subtle shifts of attention. They might diminish your news with a better story or offer a compliment that feels strangely hollow. And when you face setbacks, they're the first to express sympathy in a way that also reinforces your failure. I had a feeling this might happen, or I didn't want to say anything, but I was worried about that choice. Over time, you'll notice a pattern. Your wins make them restless. Your presence feels heavier when you're thriving. They smile, but it doesn't reach their eyes. Their friendship starts to feel transactional, as if your growth must be balanced by their gain. Jung warned us about such dynamics. A true friend doesn't compete for space. A true ally isn't secretly relieved when you stumble. If someone close to you cannot celebrate your light without needing to dim it, then they are not a friend, and they are a masked rival who thrives in your shadow. 5. The spiritual narcissist, the wise one. This is the person who walks into your life wrapped in the language of growth, consciousness, and healing. They speak softly, with intention. They reference Carl Jung, Eckhart Tolle, Marcus Aurelius. They talk about energy alignment, shadow integration, divine masculine and feminine, and holding space. On the surface, they appear enlightened, as if they've transcended conflict, transcended ego, transcended the messy emotions that plague everyone else. But look closer, and something feels off. Their calmness isn't rooted in compassion. It's a performance, a polished persona that hides something far more manipulative. Jung described this psychological split as a fractured psyche, where the conscious mind becomes infatuated with an ideal, in this case spiritual purity, while the shadow festers, cloaked in superiority, control, and subtle judgment. These individuals don't scream. They don't insult. They invalidate. If you express hurt, they don't comfort you. They psychoanalyze you. If you confront their behavior, they don't reflect. They deflect with spiritual jargon. Sounds like you're projecting. You've got some serious inner child work to do. That reaction tells me you're not in alignment. You feel confused, even ashamed, not because they proved you wrong, but because they positioned themselves as above the conflict entirely. They don't argue, because that would admit emotional engagement. Instead, they hover above it, passive-aggressively questioning your consciousness, your maturity, your healing journey. And that's the trap. You'll never win an argument with them because they'll never admit there was one. You'll never be their equal because they don't want equals. They want followers. They want students, disciples, people who admire their stillness while quietly submitting to their control. They don't actually want connection. They want authority. And they use your spiritual insecurities to gain it. What looks like peace is actually power. And the longer you stay in their orbit, the more you question your own inner compass until you no longer trust yourself without their validation. 6. The empath who ends up in control. At first, they seem like a gift. This is the person who feels you, who picks up on your moods, senses your emotional shifts, and seems to truly understand what you're going through without you needing to say a word. They call themselves empaths. And early on, the connection feels deep, almost magical, like finally someone sees the real you. But slowly, the dynamic changes. You begin to realize that they don't just feel your emotions, they monitor them. You become hyper-aware of your tone, your expressions, your silence. You catch yourself censoring your emotions, not because they asked you to, but because you're afraid of how they'll react. They start saying things like, "That energy really throws me off," or "I'm too sensitive to be around that kind of vibe." What seemed like connection is now control. Quiet emotional control masked as vulnerability. Jung warned us about this very dynamic. He explained that some people who claim to be highly sensitive are actually projecting their unhealed emotional chaos outward, expecting others to constantly adapt, tiptoe, and walk on eggshells. It's not empathy. It's emotional outsourcing, demanding the world regulate their dysregulation. And when you inevitably disappoint them, by being human, by getting frustrated, by having your own emotional needs, they spiral. But instead of owning their reactions, they cast you as the villain. You become toxic, cold, unsafe, even abusive, not because you did something cruel, but because you dared to stop managing them. Soon, you're no longer in a relationship. You're in a performance. You've lost your right to express discomfort. Your emotions are framed as threats. And the worst part? You may start to believe them. You may start to wonder if you are insensitive, when in reality, you were just too close to someone who never learned how to hold their own chaos. This is not empathy. It's codependence in disguise. And if you don't reclaim your emotional space, you'll lose yourself trying to protect theirs. The deeper truth. After seeing all 6 types, the natural question arises, why do people act this way? Why would someone pretend to care, only to manipulate? Why would someone wear a mask of kindness while hiding intentions that slowly drain the life out of those closest to them. Carl Jung gave us an answer that is as uncomfortable as it is necessary. He believed that the root of all this behavior lies in one haunting truth. These people have never confronted their shadow. They've never turned inward to examine the darker impulses, the hidden fears, the selfish desires, or the pain they carry. So instead of owning their darkness, they project it. Instead of dealing with their own manipulative nature, they make you carry it. You become the container for their unresolved issues. You absorb the damage they're unwilling to face in themselves. They never acknowledge their craving for control, so they disguise it as protection, as love, as guidance. They offer help that comes with strings. They give affection that feels warm, until you realize it's conditional. Every gesture seems kind, but it slowly starts to feel suffocating, heavy, calculated. And by the time you recognize the pattern, you're already entangled in it. They don't want to deal with their own inner chaos, so they transfer it to others. They make it your job to fix what they refuse to face. And the more unaware you are of your own boundaries, the more likely you are to fall into the trap of becoming someone else's emotional caretaker, someone else's scapegoat, punching bag, or emotional crutch. The truth is, these people are not rare. They're everywhere, in families, friendships, workplaces, and relationships. They're not always malicious in the traditional sense, but they are dangerous in their unconsciousness. They don't know who they really are, and they don't want to, because knowing would require responsibility. Knowing would require change. Jung's warning was simple yet profound. The only true protection is self-awareness. You must learn to spot the mask, not with paranoia, but with clarity. You must learn to feel when your energy is being drained, when your peace is being slowly chipped away, even by someone who claims to love you. You must become a student of your own intuition, your own emotional safety, your own psychological space. And when you see the signs, when the mask slips just enough for you to recognize the pattern, you must be willing to do what's hardest, to set boundaries, to protect your energy, to walk away if necessary. Because the deeper truth is this: you are not here to fix what someone else refuses to face in themselves. You are not here to carry their shadow. You are here to protect your light.